Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mana on the Rocks. It is I, the community communicator, Joe. Joining me, as always, the vanguard of good vibes, Atlas.
Hello, everybody.
This week we're doing a little talk about community, how to build a community, things that are kind of good for a community, things that we think are pretty good for fledgling communities, and kind of discuss some of the hot goss on the internet, as it were. There's only one bit of hot goss that I need, and that's these upcoming announcements and events. Atlas, spill the tea.
Well, let's see. I think basically the next thing to worry about is March 8th. Soundside Gaming in Tacoma has a small event that they're going to be doing. It's going to be a bronze or silver top deck event. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. I might show up. Not really sure if my plans have allowed for it yet, especially because the next day on the 9th, both the 9th and the 10th, is Cascade Clash, which is an event in Bellingham, Washington. So 128 player cap, playing for some really good prizes. They're pricing out the top 8 in cash, I believe, as well as first place is going to walk away with a 30th anniversary Lotus. So that's pretty cool, and you should check it out if you haven't already registered. And then on March 30th, there's a Cedh 5 or 6. So once again, another awesome tournament run by the Cedh TO group. So register for that if you haven't. I'm sure this one's going to happen. Rumor has it that you might even be able to get this one on the top deck circuit as well. So hopefully, we're crossing our fingers that one will end up on the circuit as well, and it'll get a full tournament, and we'll have a great time there. And then, of course, the last little thing is that in April, if any of y'all are going to be in Hunt City, make sure to look for me there. I will be there with a couple of people from our local crew. So go ahead and look forward to meeting us there.
You won't be meeting me there, fortunately. I gotta hold down the fort, as it were. I gotta hold down the fort with this week's lucky patron, in fact, Chase. Thank you very much for contributing, my friend. Appreciate you a lot. You should come on down, get a drink with us. Community, pretty important thing, I would say. I mean, I think it's generally important for any hobby, really. But I think for CDH, community is it's everything in a way, right?
I think it really is. Like, that's what the format was developed for, where it came from, what it's supposed to play on. Just EDH in general is supposed to play on the social element. If we like spending time with people, we want to talk to people while we play. We want to just get to know people. And so even playing it in a competitive level, it still tries there are those roots, and you have to respect those roots, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When you're moving it forward, in a competitive sense, where it's you have to, it's still so competitive. You have to respect that. It's Command Tower was created by a bunch of enthusiasts. The software used to run all of the major tournaments and everything now, that software was created by just a bunch of EDH fans, CEDH fans, who were hey, we want to run these tournaments, we need something to pair people and make it accessible as far as tournament construction and organizing goes. How do we do that?
Such a huge board, such a huge thing that we have now. We just could not have it if it wasn't for passionate community members.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I didn't know if you had more to go on.
No. I think that was mostly it. I just think that it's it's so critical. So I guess a couple of things we're going to talk about this episode is just sort of briefly things you can do to enhance your community, things you have to watch out for to break a community down, and then just overall sadness expression at all of the online discourse that's been happening lately with people cheating.
There's always discourse going on, but yeah, no, this stuff in particular got under my skin.
Tons and tons of cheaters getting caught lately. Tons and tons of discourse about people talking about how it's okay to lie and break deals, and yes, I get that you're allowed to. I don't know.
We'll get into that.
We can just, I guess we can just start there. Honestly, it's kind of I feel it's just sort of a touchstone. It's
yeah. We're kind of going already.
We're there.
Yeah, we're there.
But I guess part of it is just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? It goes back to what your mama or your papa or whoever told you when you were growing up, is just because you can go get away with steal candy from the candy store or whatever doesn't mean you should go steal candy from the candy store. And it's I think it's, at least for me, it's a lot of that same thing. It's especially for EDH, it's like it's a social format. Even when you're playing it competitively, like just because you're legally allowed to lie because there's no real way to, and the only reason I think that you are is because there's no real way to install a mechanism to police that.
Yeah.
Is like, but like even if though you can get away with that, and like people are like, oh, the EV is so high, blah blah blah. The EV's really not that high on lying versus not lying, like because no one's gonna trust you. Like we always say when it comes to politicking and whatnot, like it's all about communication, and the game in general is all about communication.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like just because you can get away with something one time or even two times doesn't mean you should. Like there's nothing admirable in that. Like there's, I guess from my perspective, and you'll have to tell me how you feel about this, but I think that there's something to, like, if you can sort of like trick your opponents, bluff them into like thinking you have something, or like thinking that the board state is representing one thing or whatnot, by using like your actions in game, like the way you tap mana or like the way you attack or something like that. I think those are like really good like skill-based ways of bluffing in the game. I think there's, to some extent, like, talk to your opponents, be like, hey guys, I'm gonna go do this, like I'm gonna go like get this thing with my tutor, and everyone's like, oh okay. Like maybe you don't say exactly what it is, but you like give a generic, like, I'm gonna go get some ramp with my tutor, and everyone's like, oh okay, that's fine. And then you get Dockside Extortionist and slam it, and like that wins you the game. Like it is ramp. It's also a combo piece, and that's fine. True. Or it's like you're like, oh, I'm gonna go get ramp, like a rock or something. You get Basalt Monolith to combo with. Like you didn't lie, and it was up to your opponents to suss out the information. I think those things are relatively sort of like, you could call it angle shooting, but I don't even know. It's just like being like meticulous with your
words.
Yeah, like call it angle shooting if you want to, I guess. It's like, but whatever. It's not. I don't think there's anything wrong with those types of things. Those are, I think, actually relatively skill-based. If you're playing against opponents who are smart and know how the game works, they're going to be like, whoa, that seems sus. Do you want to confirm for me that you're not getting Assault Monolith as your mana rock? Because you're going to win if that's the thing you get. And I can't counter that, but I can counter like your instant or sorcery tutor or whatever. Though I think those sort of like finagling is like, that's like, and like bluffing with your in-game actions and whatnot, that's skill-based. You lie, that's not skill-based. That's like,
it really
anyone
isn't.
can lie, and anyone can lie relatively well, especially in a board game. Like, it's nothing to be proud of. It's nothing like, oh, you told someone you were going to do something, and then you did the opposite of that? Ooh, I'm such a high skill play.
You're such a cool opponent for doing player. That. Yeah.
Like, wow.
I think I said this at one point, because I think we've talked about lying before. Like, oh man, you said something, and I believed the thing you said, and I lost because of that. Cool, dude. You really outplayed me in this Magic the Gathering game. You really did.
Yeah, I think a much higher indicator of skill is like, you can tell your opponents exactly what you're going to do, and they're like, damn, that's going to win the game. But we have to let him do it because of the way the board is positioned or something like that. And we have to hope that, like, because it's not going to win the game right now, we have to hope that something else is going to come up later that gets us out of this. Whereas we're losing to something right now, where it's like, I think what's a good example of like a gambit that I've made or you've made or something like that?
Oh
where it's
God.
Like,
I don't know.
Like
you're really good at letting people let you get to Spellseeker. Guys, the Spellseeker is going to get a removal piece. And in that instance, it absolutely does get a removal piece. It does exactly what you say it's going to do. But you still have it in rotation. You still have it in your possession, on the battlefield, in your graveyard. You can still do things with it. That's kind of that's kind of what I see in regards to that. It's like, yes, this Dockside I'm making 5-6 mana with, I'm going to be putting it all into a Psych Rift right now, so that way we don't die.
I think that's a really good one. It's like, oh guys, you have to I know you have a counterspell for a non-creature spell, but they're resolving their Dockside Extortionist, and my Dockside Council in like 2, have to let the Cyclonic Rift resolve, or we're gonna lose the game right now.
Yeah.
Like, you have to let this overloaded Psych Rift resolve. Everyone's like, damn, you're right, because if we don't, we lose instantly. And if that Rift resolves, we're probably losing on your turn, but technically speaking, we have a chance to rebuild and we don't die, so we can play our outs, blah, blah, blah.
Something can happen, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, all that stuff.
So I think that those are examples of high skill plays. Like, you sort of like position yourself at the table where your opponent's kind of like, they don't want you to, but they have to let XYZ thing happen. Like, those are high skill plays. Where if I'm like, hey guys, you should let this Grand Abolisher resolve. I'm not going to win the game. And then everyone's like, okay, Abolisher resolves because he's not going to win the game. He's like, windmill slam Savine's back on my Underworld Breach. And everyone's like, oh, cool. That was such a high skill play. You used hidden information that we didn't know about, and you told us something that we believed because we had no reason not to believe. Cool, dude. Congratulations. Like, especially online, where it's like you can't read people, because especially like those of us who are relatively talented at figuring out when people are lying or concealing information, like if you're
on the
doing
face and body.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to read body language and tone and stuff when you're not on the internet. So especially lying online, like you're so good.
Who would lie online?
Good. Who would do that?
Yeah, I don't know. And we'll bring this back into community, but I do want to just like get these things off my chest. No, I generally agree with you. You know, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. But also, in the instances where you are presented an opportunity to lie, you can also just decline to answer.
True. Yeah.
Are you about to win on your turn? I'm not answering that question. What are you getting with that tutor? I'm not telling you.
Yeah, you don't have to.
You can totally do that.
You don't have to answer questions.
Will people infer what you're trying to do from there? Yeah, absolutely. However, you're not lying. It's like, if you think you're going to win, like, and you're pretty confirmed on it, and you're pretty sure of it, like, just, yeah, I'm trying to win. Are you not trying to win? That's crazy that we're both trying to win in this 4-player free-for-all game.
Trying to win the game, yeah. Like I'm trying to win at some point.
Yeah, of course I am. And I think my best shot is now, so I'm going to do that. Are you capable of stopping me? No, I'm going to get there. Yes, cool. We're going to try and continue on.
I like the not tutor one though, because it's like you can not answer, or like you can give them just enough information. Like, are you trying to win with this? You'd be like, don't worry about it. I'm not getting my demonic consultation or something like that. And like, oh, okay. And you get something else to go win the game. It's like, you didn't tell them you weren't going to win the game. You just didn't answer their question.
Yeah. Or like.
Yeah.
Or my classic example that I will always go to when it comes to like lying and bluffing and finagling and whatever delineation you want to go on from lying to bluffing that you're currently built on that makes you go, yeah, guys, I'm going to lie in every game when you don't need to lie at all. There's a problem thing on the board, and me and you make a deal, and you say, fine, I'll help you out, but you can't kill this. That's fine. I'm not going to kill it. I'm going to exile it, or I'm going to bounce it. I dealt with it. I did not kill it. I did not destroy it. I bounced it to your hand. A strictly separate thing. I don't see any wrong there. Is it a little gray in kind of its approach? Yeah, totally. But also, you didn't do the thing that you said you were going to do. That's not on me. That's not on you to reveal all of your plan. That's on me to infer what you're trying to do. And be prepared for those things. Or I'm not going to win on your turn, but you're going to mill everybody out, and then by the time it gets to your turn, you're winning again. You know, that I think is also totally fine.
Yeah, like there's that finagling aspect, and different people draw the lines differently. People see things differently, which is why it's hard. But I think, like, once again, like, for me, the biggest part with all of this is communication, and that sort of like brings us back into that community, right? Where it's like, you're trying to set up a healthy community for CEDH, like, I think a lot of that is just communicating. Like, we've talked about Rule Zero before. Everyone's heard of, like, a pre-game conversation when you're sitting down casually with some people that you've never played with before, but like, what do we want out of this game? Like, what's our expectation? Since everyone's bringing their own collection of game pieces. And I think that clear communication, like, the power levels are, like, really obnoxious and they're a meme at this point, but you can be like, okay, I'm trying to play competitive, like, we're all playing to win here, we're trying to win as fast as possible, but we're, like, trying to have a good time doing it. Like, we're all here to enjoy the game and each other's company, but how I'm planning to enjoy the game is by winning. And if that doesn't mesh with the way your expectations are going for the game, like, probably we shouldn't play, or maybe, like, we give it a shot, we play one game, everyone goes into it with an open mind. If it doesn't work out, then we say, hey, let's not play another game together, or like, here, use one of my decks, and you can continue playing with that mentality of, I want to win as fast as possible, like, as efficiently as possible, but you didn't build a deck, so you don't know all the cards in it. I know that the construction level is going to be relatively similar to the other deck that I brought. Like, it's going to keep things a little bit more in the same realm. Yeah. So I think that like, communication is just so critical when it comes to building up, like, that sort of community.
Well, and lying is such I hesitate to use the word toxic, but invasive, virus-like. I don't know what word I'm trying to.
Just in general, like
yeah, it poisons the well. Is really what I'm trying to say. It invites a lot of things that you just are so easy to keep out by just saying no, don't do that. This is what happens when you do that. Just in general, and with how grassroots CDH is as a whole, it's so easy for everyone to see a clip of someone lying online in a game and go whichever way they want to go about it. But at the end of the day, I when I hear about stuff like that, I think about new fledgling players that, maybe this is maybe this recent bit of news about person lying in a CDH tournament is the first instance that they even heard about CDH. What is that person gonna think? Oh, this person made it to the top tables and they lied to get there. That's what this is about? It's not, it's we killed the pub stomper mentality, but now we're onto the liar and cheater mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the part that I have the most issue with. I don't care if you lie in a game. Well, I care that you lie in a game, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you can't win another game by lying again. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows that you're capable of lying and you're willing to lie in a game. Because, hey, this is a social game that we're playing. This is a format in a game that is built upon a community and communication and just being a good social person. There are ramifications for breaking those social cues. And there's just no reason to. There's just no reason to.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think jumping off that idea, sorry, I was excited about this point.
Oh, go for it.
Was that, so I've seen, I'm on like our Twitter and YouTube and things, and I've seen people talking about how it just makes more sense to lie, like this game won't be competitive until everyone's like, time's no longer a shared resource until players can lie and like no one cares anymore and blah 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 blah. And like how like cheating's like, yeah, it's like it's against the rules, but like also like you kind of expect people to cheat and like be prepared for it. And like that is actually some things I've read even about the cheating. And I don't think that being competitive and being social are mutually exclusive.
No.
I think there is a significant break in like the mentalities that players have when they try and reconcile like being social and playing competitively. Some players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like part of that is like, well, if I'm not trying to eke out every last possible inch and advantage, it's not truly competitive. And I'm
not being as efficient as possible. I'm not, I know the exact thought process you're on.
Yeah, like, and I don't think that lying is necessarily efficient or inefficient. Like, this is not a comment on that. I'm moving off of that. But it's like that sort of mentality where it's like social interactions and competitiveness can't go hand in hand. If that's your mentality, what's the point of playing like intramural sports? Or what's the point of like participating in like a league or something like that, where like there's really nothing on the line other than
say you want to have a good game.
Yeah, like to play good games and like maybe like bragging rights. Like some of these Discord tournaments or whatnot, like it's just a role. Like, are you guys really are players out there really that down bad for a win, where like they want this Discord role so badly that they're willing to like damage their social reputation and detract from everyone else's game? Obviously some players are, but I just don't think that is a healthy or productive way to engage one's community or to grow it. Because like you mentioned, especially like bringing newer players into the format and this is their first experience, is this whole discussion, like that's not a good look. That's
no, it really isn't
a good look.
That does everything against what a growing fledgling community wants.
Yeah, and I get like there was the talk from like 60 card players, like Pro Tour players and stuff, talking about like, well, why would you ever trust anything your opponent says? Like,
correct.
I get that. Yeah, your opponents do not have your best interests at heart. But that said, that doesn't mean that like they're always going to lie to you. And some of them will. Like there are some bad apples out there you have to be aware of. But a lot of times, I think that it's also like it's okay to trust your opponents, to take a little on faith, especially when it's like a semi-cooperative game. At times, like there's something there for that. And I think that 60 card players also have a similar like to some extent, they have a similar take on, like, it's about building community. And obviously not all of them. There are cheaters, blah, 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 out there on both sides.
Yeah, like these issues are not unique to CDH. They're not even unique to Magic. This is a every game problem.
Yeah, it's a gaming problem.
Game that you play, there are going to be people that are going to try and work outside the system, work outside the agreed upon rule set, because they think they can get away with it. They think they can
troll.
Yeah, like this isn't unique to any of the things that we're talking about here. It's just these are the current issues that plague us.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the best visual examples of something that of like a way to like build positive community that I can think of actually comes from it's like a brief clip that was circulating along with this whole discussion of 60 card players, and somebody cast an uncounterable spell. They cast Dragonlord Dramoka, and their opponent tried to counterspell it. And this is at like, I think this match is at competitive REL from what I understand. It was like no takes backs type deal. And the opponent who controlled the Dramoka, obviously it's in their best interest for this counterspell to go off and resolve because they can't counter their spell. But they before the opponent can finish taking their game action, they have their like it's uncounterable and have to take it back. Like that, and like yes, there's a lot of finagling. There's a lot of like trying to bait your opponents into doing this, that, and the other thing, mind gaming, and that's part of the game, and we acknowledge that going. But that doesn't mean like you can't also try and have like generate a positive experience, like try and generate like everyone playing at their best. Like sometimes, yeah, you're trying to trick your opponent into countering your uncounterable spell, and like that's good for you, and that's how you're going to win the game. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not even necessarily poor sportsmanship. But there are also those points where it's like just because you can get away with something doesn't mean that you should try to.
Mm-hmm.
Like doesn't mean you should. You should. It doesn't mean you should try to. It doesn't mean that like that thought should be crossing your mind. We should all be trying to like lift each other up a little bit, and it's like it kind of sounds preachy, right? But it's like
it is a little preachy, but like it's
don't
correct.
Don't let your opponents cast spells into a Drannith Magistrate, like if they can't, or like into a Rule of Law, like they reveal that extra information. Sometimes you do it because like you're like, oh, like I get a little extra information. Oh, you can't cast that spell. But also sometimes you see your opponent's about to cast their second spell, and it's like, hey man, I know we're playing like competitively right now, like the local tournament, or maybe even a Comp REL tournament or whatever. There's a Rule of Law. You don't want to cast a spell into it.
Yeah, I don't want you to reveal your hidden information because that's your advantage.
Yeah, like, and it's a hard line to walk, right? Like, I'm sure I've definitely played both sides of that, like, especially Rule of Law thing or whatever. It's like, man, I really want to see that extra card in my opponent's hand. Sometimes you let them cast it, and you're like, hey, you can't cast that spell, but now I know you have that removal spell in your hand. Or sometimes you say, hey, there's a Rule of Law in play.
You see them tap the mana after the spell, and you go, hey, you can't cast anything more.
Yeah, just a reminder. Yeah. Like, maybe you're channeling, but also I just want to remind you, don't reveal what your plan is from here, because you can't do it.
Yeah. And all this trickles down into just building a better community overall. It really isn't that hard. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking from a position where I don't know how hard it can be to build a community, because I feel like our little community at Gabby's, we're lucky, I think. And that's the position that I think we find ourselves in. We just have a lot of good people there.
Yeah, well, and I hear takes about other stores having similar builds, so I don't think it's just us.
No, it really isn't. But even still, it's not hard to, hey, we're playing CDH. Oh, what's that? Come on in. We'll show you the ropes. We'll show you what's going on. And, you need cards? We got you covered. You need proxies? We got you covered. You want to learn these decks? We got you covered. Just being welcoming, kind, and informative, and trying to make sure everyone has a good time at the table. Everyone understands what they're doing, especially if you have a new person to CDH. Tell them why. If they lost, tell them why they lost. Explain to them why these things happen. Walk them through the steps and processes and thoughts that go on during the course of the game. Or, or, hey, I won this game because you mistimed your removal spell, or you listened to me when it probably wasn't the best for you given your position, but you don't know these things, so now you know these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like sort of leads into like a big thing of what can like sort of tear even like established communities apart is salt. Like, yeah, like even when everyone's like, oh, CDH players, like we try not to get salty, like everyone has the same expectations and whatnot. Like, yeah, but emotions do run high and people get salty, and I think that I've seen it happen to groups before that I wasn't a part of, And as someone who has had salt directed at them and been salty, like yes, of course, people like their emotions get heated at times, and things can get unpleasant.
Or human.
I think that letting that sort of like behavior run rampant is another thing that like we need to all be super conscious of. Whether that's like, hey, this person like lied to me, and like now like I'm gonna like have to share that information because I feel like other players have a right to know. But like at the same time, you don't need to be the bad person about it. There's a correct way to deliver the information. There's an incorrect way to deliver the information. And especially to that person, like you'd be like, hey dude, like you lied. That's so cool. You're such a good player. But like you don't really need to take it any further than that, right? Like it doesn't need to. There doesn't need to be like a whole flame. Like you lied to me, blah 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 blah. Not to their face. Like go vent to your friends or whatever. That's fine. But do it like in privacy, safe, not on the internet. Like do it away. You have a chance to do it like someplace where
in a healthy, productive manner.
You're safe. Other people are safe from your reactions, and it's like, and then you can cool down. You can come back to it with like a more balanced head, right? Because I think that it's always when emotions get heated that things get hard, and whether that's salt or like something else, that's what tears communities apart. And I think there's still too much of that going around the CDH.
I've been salty. I've salted at people. No, I've salted at people before. It doesn't happen frequently, but I definitely have. We're all people at the end of the day. Like no one's perfect. We all play games. We all play competitive games. Like salt is kind of our trade in a way, but there is a level of you can't just go, yeah, we're all hardcore gamers. We all get salty. Get over it. No.
Yeah, there's a healthy way to handle it.
You can deal with these things. You can manage these things. You can take care of these things. You know, if someone salts out, it's never really a good idea to come at someone when they're salty with kind of the way to put the flames out. Wait for the person to calm down, then be like, hey dude, we gotta talk about what happened. That's not cool. The way you talk to that person, the way you salted out, like you don't owe me an apology. You definitely owe the other person an apology though. Cooler heads will prevail, and if whoever is salting out in this hypothetical is any amount of reasonable, they'll go, yeah, you're probably right. I should probably go do that. And boom, just like that, you've put out a forest fire and you've made the community stronger. It's not a hard thing to do, but it does require effort. And I think that's the hard part. It's so easy to just salt out and go, yep, gamers be gaming, and just move on.
Yeah, and I think that's like one of the things, right? Is sometimes it feels bad. You feel like you're losing the social exchange to some extent, but you have to like step up and be the bigger person and absorb a little bit of that hurt every now. Not all the time, but every now and again, in order to sort of like try and like cushion things and piece these like pieces back together, so that you can fix the community and sort of like bend it past whatever that conflict is, and then try and get it to go on. And I think that's, once again, it's like it's pieces like that. And I think that's one of the reasons that like our shop has such a good community, is because a lot of players are willing to step up and be like, hey, like I know we had a conflict, like for whatever, that's my bad, I chilled out, sorry for that, and then like try and move on. I think there's also a lot of people who will like call others out, like, hey, you're getting too far, like you need to roll it back. It's just a game at the end of the day, and I think that's another really important piece. And then of course like some other stuff outside of what is basically just basic temper management. Like,
yeah, at the end of the day, it's all that it really is.
It's like we all should have learned these skills in high school. Not all of us mastered them.
That's okay.
It's okay. Okay.
It's okay.
That we're all learning and we're all growing all the time. So I think that there are some other things we can do outside of all of that, even to like sort of encourage community. Like Joe, you mentioned like lending people cards and stuff. Like that's a huge thing. Like
massive.
Our locals, we mentioned it before, our locals don't allow proxies for like our weekly tournaments and stuff. So if somebody's looking for a card, like, yeah, here's you don't have a mana crypt? Here, borrow this mana crypt for the next like 3 hours or whatever. And I've lent like cards to people before that I've never really played with, like maybe a game or two, and they seem nice, and like sometimes it takes like a little bit of trust, and not everyone's as trusting as me. Like, you know, not everyone's willing to like lend out a mana crypt. I'm gullible that way. Please don't steal from me. But sometimes it takes a little bit of a leap of faith to sort of build that community, because you're gonna lend this person, like, I don't know, like a food chain, a $20 card here because they need it for their competitive deck right now, or you're gonna lend them like a proxy list that you spent $30 on or something. Yeah, sure. Is there a 1 in 100 chance they walk away with it and like you're out $20-30? Yes. And will that suck? Absolutely. We are not trying to invalidate that. But at the same time, like, if you don't take a little bit of a risk, like, your community doesn't exist because it's so impersonal. Like,
yeah,
it's very
it's relationships.
Yeah,
it's relationships. I mean, at the end of the day, like, relationships are an exercise of trust between two people. Me lending you a mana crypt is an exercise in a show of my good faith and my trust that I really hope that you don't mess with. You definitely can, but I really hope that you don't.
Absolutely.
And that's really what it comes down to. And that's nothing's more human than that, honestly. Opening yourself up to these things to get stabbed right in the heart or the back or whatever. Like, does it happen? Yeah. Will it continue to happen? Yeah. Does it mean you should stop doing it? No.
Yeah. Just you have to pick your battles. Like, be cautious for sure. Like, don't just go like throwing cards at people necessarily. But also, like, it's okay to be like, yeah, I mean, like, I'll lend you this card so you can play tonight. Can you please just return it to me when you're done with it? Mm-hmm. And then people will return it to you when they're done with it. Like, more often than not, at least that has been my experience. I find that if you are willing to reach out to a player and like extend that hand of friendship, like, they're happy to repay in kind. Like, they're grateful even that you made the first move, because I think as humans, like, we basically all just want to connect
for sure
at some point. And like, once again, social game, I think that Magic is a great way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like the flip side of that is it not being the person, you know, giving away the mana crypt or whatever. Like, being the person being like walking up to a table being like, oh man, I'm really excited to play your guys' weekly. You know, does anyone have like a spare mana crypt? And someone goes, yeah, dude, I got you. Just give it to me after we're done, and we're good. I want to see you play, and I want to see you play well. Let's give you the tools. Like, how stoked would that person be? Like, oh my god, these cool people, like, I'm gonna be able to play in their shop, I'm gonna be able to play with them, and they're willing to like loan me a card or two, or several, a whole deck maybe, to be able to play. That's kick ass. I'm gonna come back here next week. I'm gonna bring my friends. You know, like, that's like, how beautiful is that? How great is that?
Yeah, and I think that's really like, that's the type of environment that we're all shooting for, even in a competitive environment, like playing in like competitive tournaments and whatnot. Like,
I would say especially in a competitive environment. That's like what everyone should be striving to do.
Yeah, you want to like be challenging each other to all play your best and be your best, but like at the same time you should be respectful of one another, and also trying to like support each other and uplift each other.
Mm-hmm.
But like the whole, like, you look at like athletes around the world or whatever, and like there's that sort of sense of camaraderie in a lot of cases. Like, that's kind of what I think we should all aim to be doing with our game, is like trying to make sure that everyone is like supported, and like, yeah, we're standing with you. We're here to make sure that you have a really great experience playing with this brand new pod that you've never played with before,
and maybe this whole new style of Magic that you've never played before.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, like, I mean, just like a personal story is, we had I was playing with a player at a tournament I played recently, who had just moved here from another state, and we were playing our game, and they jammed a win, and the rest of the table flubbed on our communication on how to stop their initial attempt. So one of the players presented another out, which was to let them generate infinite mana and take these game actions, and they wouldn't generate any excess mana. It was just enough to like draw cards until they could stop the win, and they would reveal all the cards as they went and everything. And the new player was a little bit salty at first. They were like, oh, well, you're just king making. And then like during the game, I like tried to explain, like, hey, I don't know, like, I understand why you feel that way. Like, you presented a win, it was really clean, but we do still technically have an out, and so we're playing to it. And like, after the game, we chatted, and I explained my philosophy behind it, and like how it's like, especially in our area, like we really like communicating well, and like, you gotta play your out no matter what it is. And that player, like, they could not win the game. They said they would not win the game. Like, by generating infinite mana, because it was a dockside loop, and their infinite number was coming from treasure, so they could just be cracked to stop the loop at any point. So like there was like a little bit of a check there. Like it wasn't like you can just do it now. Like, so once again, like your opponents don't have your best interest at heart. Like you gotta trust, but also like put those safeguards in place. And then the new player was like, oh yeah, okay, well I see that. And then we chatted some more throughout the course of the tournament. They played some other games. They started to get a little bit more like comfortable with the idea of playing your outs and all that stuff. And then end of the tournament, they said, yeah, I had a really great time. Tournament was fun. And like I think that they bought into the community just a little bit more because of that hand that me and the rest of that table put out, and like taking the time to explain why we're doing what we're doing, like not just, oh well, you're the new guy and you don't know what's going on and we're gonna try and like exploit that. Like I think that is I think a toxic way to play, is like just because someone doesn't like know the philosophy or whatever, like you got to give them a chance to buy in and make sure that like they're on board. And that's really a great way to encourage that type of community.
No, that's really good. So I'm always going to go back to new people, because new people are how communities thrive. Is the people that come in, because they don't know the history, they don't know the people, they don't know the lore. So everything that a new person will experience into that community is going to be emblematic for how they experience that community. You know, how different would that situation be if, you know, you guys didn't talk it through? If the player didn't say, I can find the out, you're not going to like how I'm going to find the out, but I can find the out. And, you know, then it's classic kingmaker situation. You guys didn't put any of the safety rails, you didn't put any of the talk or anything that, or you didn't do like the debrief afterwards. Like how different of an experience is that?
Yeah, and that player would not be like, they would not want to still be a part of this community for sure.
They would probably, if it was a tournament, they would probably drop right afterward. If I was them, I'd be dropping. I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah,
and that's what really all this talk comes down to, is like the lying, the cheating, the this, the that. Like, it's important, yes, but at the same time, it's a little bit noise adjacent, I feel. Where like there are other issues that are more important than so-and-so lying in a tournament. I think the discussion on these things is good, but I really just don't care for the rhetoric of like lying is okay because the rules say it's okay. I understand that it is. I understand that there is no punishment mechanism. There is no way to hold that idea in philosophy. I just straight up don't like it. And the only way you can really change the tune of that is by having those communities that are able to stand by you, and for you to be able to point at and say, yeah, we don't do lying here. All of us are really good players. All of us have really good EVs. All of us convert pretty frequently. None of us lie. Do we operate in the gray area? Absolutely. But y'all expect each other to operate in that gray area. We all are well equipped, and
your opponents don't have your best interests at heart.
They don't have your best interests in mind. If someone says, yeah, I'm getting a removal spell, I'm going to ask them what removal spell they're getting. What specific card are you tutoring up? When people ask me, hey, what'd you tutor? I tell people Magic card or Colossal Dreadmaw. Like, I answered your question. I'm not telling you, unless I actively need to tell you, or I'm trying to do weird things where I curry favor with the table. I frequently will cast a Demonic Tutor and then just flip a card from my deck that I'm casting and be like, okay, Demonic Tutor, cool, resolves Dockside in the stack. And I just flip the Dockside right from my deck. Like, I don't need a lie here. Of course I'm getting Dockside. Of course I'm jamming Dockside. Why would I not be jamming Dockside right now? Make 8 mana. Are you kidding me? Seems like a great play for me. And hiding behind the veneer of, oh, I need to lie to get better. It's like, if you're in a position, I ran through so many scenarios in my head after this discourse started. There is not a single situation I can think of where lying is more preferable to not answering or just telling the truth. And more often than not telling people will do the same effect as a lie, but you don't ruin things for yourself and for everyone around you.
Oh yeah, like I've definitely been in positions where it's like, this spell is obvious, like an Eldritch Evolution that's obviously gonna win you the game. And everyone's like, what you getting? Like, you're getting this? It's like, I mean, I could be getting that, but I mean, I'm not gonna tell you what I'm getting. And everyone's like, oh, okay, like there's a known counterspell at the table. And I was like, oh, you know what? Okay, yeah, that resolves. Like, sometimes people just let it resolve and they don't know what you're getting. They're like, it can't be that bad. And then you put
Yeah.
something that wins the game into play and it's too late.
Yeah. And that's a get good moment. That's well, you're gonna learn to communicate with your table better after that now.
Yeah.
That's
That's kind of it. It's just like,
it's kind of it.
one of those things we wanted to talk about, share our thoughts with.
Yeah. I don't know, we have a great community, and I think being able to tell people in like the greater CDH space how to communicate well, how to build up these communities, how to take care of those coming in, and being able to have the tools necessary to deal with eventual issues. All of these aren't ifs, they're whens. Like, this is nothing new. People are going to be people. You just got to know how to you just got to have the right tools to be able to deal with people in certain regards. That's all
it boils down to.
All it boils down to. Well, Atlas, it seems like our episode is boiling down. I want to thank you for having you on. This was a good one.
Yeah, it was a fun show.
Definitely. All right, buddy. Catch you next time.